Rabbi Sachs, Lady Sachs, it's a great privilege and pleasure to have you with us this evening. Every university exists, it seems to me, to sharpen the intellect through question and answer. This place exists not to provide all the answers, but to ensure that the important questions can be asked. And for those of us who are people of faith, we experience delight in asking questions, and thereby glorify God in the greatest gift He has given us, the gift of our minds. And it's disturbing to me that even in academic circles, some questions are seen as not worth asking, and some arguments not worth having, and education sometimes becomes the transmission of formulae and becomes entirely passive in its aim. And this concern lies behind this evening's discussion. And it's in this context that I'm very happy to introduce Rabbi Jonathan Sachs.
What then should we do in a deeply secular age when the times are out of joint? And the truth is that we know the answer. Jews and Christians have always known the answer. We remember that our greatest moments came when ours was a minority voice. The rabbi said about Abraham that he was on one side and all the world on the other. Jews and Christians are used to being a minority. That's how we began, and as far as Jews are concerned, that's how we've been pretty much ever since. It is precisely when religion is out of fashion that it becomes the counter voice in the conversation of humankind. To quote a book title by I think he's University of Chicago economist, Cass Sunstein, he wrote a book called Why Societies Need Dissent. The Judeo-Christian voice is always the dissenting voice. James Surowiecki, in his wonderful book, The Wisdom of Crowds, talks about an American naturalist called William Beebe, who in 1921 in Guyana came across a giant colony of army ants. These army ants went round and round in a wide circle for days until they all dropped dead of exhaustion. Why so? Because ants have a very simple rule: follow the guy in front of you. And if the guy in front of you is lost, that's it. There are no dissenting voices in a colony of army ants. So the truth is that if all we have is people following the leader and the leader gets lost, society is only saved from the fate of army ants by making space for dissenting voices. The Hebrew Bible of the Judeo-Christian heritage will always be the dissenting voice, the prophetic voice, even in the most secular of secular ages. So therefore, simply to end by giving the tiniest bit of shape to what I think should be the dissenting voice heard in the public square right now, I would simply itemize 10 simple questions we should be asking of those in the public arena responsible for public policy. Number one, what happens to human worth when we know the price of everything and the value of nothing? What happens to human worth when everything can be bought and sold and nothing stands above that has no price? Number two, what happens to the cohesiveness of a society when the 1% thrives and the 99% suffer? What constitutes the duties of the members of society to one another? Number three, what happens to the sanctity of life when there is abortion on demand and when throughout Europe there are beginning to be signs of legislation in favor of voluntary euthanasia? and assisted dying. Number 4, how will we prevent climate change and environmental destruction, and if we do not acknowledge obligations that go beyond our choices and our lifetimes? Number 5, how will we ground marital stability if marriage no longer exists as a sacred covenant? Number 6, how will we avoid doing irreparable damage to our children if they have no grounded hope of growing up in the secure and loving presence of the two people who brought them into being? Number 7, if the neuroscientists are right, that free will is an illusion, that we are neuroscientifically determined, then how can we be seen as morally responsible for our acts? Number 8, if we are not morally responsible for our acts, then why have laws, courts, systems of justice? Why have a free society at all if freedom is itself an illusion? Number 9, if the universe came into existence for no reason, and one day for no reason will cease to be, what then is the objective meaning of human life? And number 10, if life indeed has no objective meaning, then why should we value life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? These are not marginal questions. They go to the very heart of the human condition. But I do not see compelling answers out there in the secular culture of the West today, and they have been, and the most compelling answers that we have ever had in the West have to do with the answers given by the Judeo-Christian tradition. So to repeat, that there are many cultures that have existed entirely outside of that tradition, none has lifted our moral sights so high or exercised our moral muscles more demandingly. Absent that vision, because we began with the quote, "Without a vision the people perish." Absent that vision, what is left for Western civilization other than technocracy and management? That is not the vision that can sustain a civilization. So, at a time when religion has become increasingly marginalized and increasingly less powerful, it becomes very significantly important for us to remember the difference between power and influence. There is something called power, and there is something called influence. And my rough approximation of the shelf life of a superpower is that it's getting shorter. At least, if I'm roughly right, the superpower in the 15th century was Spain, 16th century Venice, 17th century Holland, 18th century France, 19th century England, 20th century America, 21st century, who knows? 100 years on average. Christianity has been around 20 times that long, and Judaism in one form or another twice as long as that. Power has a short shelf life, and all we need is influence. Just simply to remind us of those profoundly counterintuitive truths to which all history is a testimony, that a society becomes strong by caring for the weak, that a society becomes rich when it cares for the poor, and that a civilization only becomes invulnerable by caring for the vulnerable. As long as God's love for us leads us to love others, we will still have a message for the world, and we will still be heard by those who are listening. Thank you very much.